Hey everybody, we have a new sponsor and a special deal for our listeners of Karen Isn't Always Right. If you have any photos or documents that you need to scan, or videotapes, audio tapes, or film reels that you need to import, you should check out avgearguy.com. If you mention the name Karen Isn't Always Right when you order, you're going to get 5% off, and a portion of your order is going to help support the podcast Karen Isn't Always Right. All of those formats degrade over time and are sitting ducks in the case of fire or theft. Why not convert it all to digital? All your memories can be stored safely on the cloud or even a hard drive that fits in your pocket. AV Gear Guy has over 30 years of experience with all kinds of media, and they can accept orders from anywhere in the U.S. Don't forget to mention the name of Karen Isn't Always Right and get 5% off. For more details and to book, visit their website at avgearguy.com. That's avgearguy.com. Hey everyone, Christopher here with another special episode of Karen Isn't Always Right. Today I have Crystal on, who is a colleague of mine. She's a general manager of a theater out in Oklahoma, and I got to tell you, I have a lot of respect for this young woman. She has progressed very, very quickly through the ranks in our company, and has just stood out to me as someone who clearly cares very, very deeply about the people she works with and her job, and it's just so evident in everything that she says and does. And it was really cool that she came on the show, and we got to talk for a little bit about how she got into it and why she got into it and what she loves about it. So it was really an awesome time, and I hope you guys really enjoy this. Without further ado, we have Crystal. Enjoy. Hey, Crystal.
Hey Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Just living the quarantine life.
That's right. That's right. Interesting times we're living in, huh?
Yeah, my daughter's hamster got lost this morning, so that was the most excitement probably of the whole day.
Did you find the hamster?
Yes, it was behind the dryer.
Okay.
Alive, thank God.
That's good. That's good. My when I was married before, my family and I went on a vacation, and my daughter had a hamster in a cage. When we left, it was in the cage.
Mm-hmm.
When we came back, the hamster was not in the cage anymore. We never found that hamster.
Oh, you never found
We
it?
never found this hamster. I have no idea what happened. We
Oh
didn't
my
have like a
God.
cat or anything. So I don't know. Someday they're gonna find it like in a wall or something. You know?
Yeah.
So you work in a movie theater, right? How do we know each other? How did we eventually meet?
I think it was at a convention
That seems
in
right.
Vegas. Yeah, I think, sure, probably in a bar setting.
Probably. Yeah. Hammered. Who knows?
Yeah. Couple Long Islands in.
Yeah, yeah. Because I know for a while, we didn't really kind of run in the same circles, and I think we just sort of eventually became friends. So,
Yeah, my first couple of years as a GM, I was pretty quiet and I kind of kept to myself, and I think a lot of that was age related too, because I was a lot younger and I didn't have as many things to talk about, I guess. And so as the years went on, then I kind of started to come out of my shell a little bit.
fair enough. Yeah. How long have you been working in movie theaters? Like, what year did you start?
April 12th, so next month will be my 13th year with the same company. I'm very loyal. That's something that I think is important, is loyalty. So I've been with the same company for 13 years. I got hired when I was a senior in
Okay.
high school. So um, it just always worked with my schedule between classes and softball, and I had a nannying gig that I was doing too. Each week, I was able to say, okay, next week, instead of working Thursday, I'd like to work a double on Friday. And,
Right.
they were always very accommodating. So I always appreciated that.
Yeah. Where'd you get your start?
In Rochester, New York, there was a theater about 5 minutes from the high school, so it was really super convenient. I get out of softball practice and then just head over to the theater and be there by 4 and work a box office shift till 9 p.m. and go home and do my homework and then repeat
Do
all
it
over
all over
again the
again.
next
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the theaters I worked at was literally right next to the high school that I went to. And I
Hmm.
grew up in Kansas. And I remember it was a big deal when they were building that movie theater. Like this, like all the people in the community were really upset about it because they were like, well, it's just going to give kids a reason to skip and go do something. And it's like, I don't, that doesn't seem like very solid logic on that. I mean, if kids are going to skip to go watch a movie, I don't think they care if they have to drive 5 minutes or walk across the parking lot. It was kind of stupid. But yeah, that was a small, like Midwestern owned company called Dickinson.
Oh, okay.
One of the more fun theaters I ever worked at. Lots of shenanigans. So you started when you were a senior, and how long did you work at that theater?
Well, I kind of worked my way up. I learned all the departments and applied for assistant manager, which I did not get my first round.
No.
And my GM at the time just told me, keep doing what you're doing. You need to learn a little bit more about. At the time, there was the studio eats area with like the sandwiches and the salads and all that. So I said, okay, well, I just need to learn more. I'm just not ready. And then I think I got assistant manager in 2009, so about 2 years of being floor staff. And then there was a dollar theater that was in another town. It was about a 15-minute drive, and the GM position came open. This is what, 2011? Yeah, 2011. Nope, I take that back. 2013. I was an AM for a while, and then at the time I was a SAM. So the region leader of the area had approached me and said, "Hey, are you ready to start your GM career?" And I had a 2-year-old, and I knew like becoming a GM typically meant moving out of state. I mean, that's just really what it
Yeah.
happens. And since this theater was only down the road, I said, well, yeah, like I
Sure.
can still have my family to help me, and I'm ready to take this step. So I then went and ran a dollar theater, which reverted me back to film because they were still film. And my office was right in the projection booth, and I listened to film all day long. And
Knew
um,
exactly when there was a problem, I bet.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so that was a fun experience, the Dollar House. And then I was only there for about 18 months when Erie, Pennsylvania came open. And I kind of decided this is for sure a career thing I want to do. And now that my daughter's a little bit older, I'm going to take the step. And we moved. And it was scary at first, but I loved meeting, oh my gosh, each time like a new theater team and new stories and new things to learn about what works best for them, because they
Sure.
always had their own procedures in place. And that was one thing that I said, I'm not going to change things at work, even though at this location it's not what I did at my previous location.
Yeah.
So
That's tough to do sometimes because you have this inherent like
mhm.
desire to be like, well, I know what works, but yeah, if you start just willy-nilly changing something in a location that
Yeah.
you take over, it can really rub people the wrong way. So,
Yep. So
yeah.
then I was in Erie for about 1 year, and then Oklahoma City came open. And I had applied for a couple others that I got turned down for, and I'm okay with rejection. It's something that my parents taught me early on, is not, when you get rejected, you just fight harder.
Hmm.
So I had a couple no's that I'm looking back at him like, oh, I don't think I was supposed to live in
Yeah.
Florida,
Yeah.
or I wasn't supposed to run this theater. So I've been in Oklahoma City now it'll be 4 years in May, and it's
Yeah.
by far been my favorite. Sorry for my Rochester and Erie peeps, but um, Oklahomans are so nice,
Yeah. It's
so
Midwest,
nice.
man. Midwest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different clientele. It's so different.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever leave, to be honest, at this
Yeah.
point. That's how
It's your
much I like
forever
it.
theater. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of my best friends ran that theater, and he used to speak very highly of it. And it's got its challenges for sure. I mean, it's obviously a monster location, very large physically, but then there's just other challenges that come along with it. But I think each theater has its own unique challenges.
Mhm.
I mean, everywhere I've been all over the country, it's even in this state that I'm in. I mean, Fort Collins can be dramatically different than Greeley. They can be dramatically different than Boulder, than
Mhm.
Colorado Springs. Like, I mean, each town has its uniqueness, you know?
Yeah, but you know what I learned though? The people are still the same. Like you still have your one type of manager that is good at this
Yeah.
and your one manager that has the quirkiness. You
Yeah.
know, it's like different locations, but the people are still the same and the even the customer situations still
Yeah.
really are, you know, the
There's
same. They
patterns.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
like, well, there's all these stories about things that have happened in Oklahoma City. I'm like, that stuff happened in New York too.
Right.
Like, it's
Right.
just the industry we're in.
I do think so. To speak to the employees being the same, like there's always like that one type of employee. There's probably like five different archetypes, so to speak, of
Mhm,
like you could go to any theater anywhere in the country and it's like, okay, there's that one, there's that one, there's that one. You know, there's like the mom of the theater,
mhm.
there's like the really, really quirky employee. You know, there's probably five or six different ones.
Yep.
I will say, like, the biggest difference I'll see from theater to theater can be in terms of customer concerns. You know, I mean, this whole podcast started from that kind of place of dealing with, you know, the Karens of the world or whatever. And so there's just certain areas I've noticed where customer concerns can be a lot more intense in some areas and more frequent versus other areas where people are just way more easygoing. And usually I've found the pattern is tied directly to socioeconomics. Um, and so
Yeah.
like your uber wealthy will typically be much more vocal and quick to have concerns when things aren't going the way they feel they should be going. And then sometimes on the other end, it's the ends of the spectrums. So on the very far end, like your more value conscious people can also be very quick to complain. So there's that little middle segment where people are just very easygoing, and sure there'll be concerns from time to time, but they won't be as heated, they won't be as frequent. That's kind of what I've noticed, at least in my
Yeah, I
travel.
mean, I would agree for sure. There's definitely the wealthier that, you know, they pay any dime that they give, they're expecting that service 100%. Um and then on the opposite spectrum, that dime matters just as much to that person too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but I've this location that I'm at is a value theater, so our tickets are pretty cheap
Hmm.
compared to the competitors in the area. And you would think that that only brings in the lower class status, but it actually we bring in all different types of people, and that's what I love about it. So
Yeah. I mean, it's a busy location, right?
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Just up until last year, the alcohol laws changed here, so some competitors, excuse me,
So,
some competitors moved in. So in the past year, things have kind of settled down a little bit, but yeah, we were doing over 1 million people a year when I took over. So Black Panther, actually, that opening Saturday, we did 11,873 people.
yeah. I love how
Yeah.
you know the exact number.
Yep. It
Yeah.
I got to work I think at noon that day and I didn't leave till 3 in the morning. And I remember looking at the clock. I got to my office around like midnight to start to try to wrap my head around what just happened. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this
Yeah.
where like what just happened? And it was just all day long, lines after lines, and we didn't have reserved seating at
Hmm.
that point. So it was pretty much like Disney World. You
Right.
went
Just hold out lines
one
everywhere.
line to the next line to the
Yeah.
next line till the actual show would begin, but then you still had 20 minutes of preview. It was yeah, it was fun though.
Yeah. I worked at a theater just like yours, but down in El Paso, long, long time ago for Robert, and when he was a GM, and Titanic came out that year that I was there. We had just opened, and we kind of would bounce back and forth between being either the first, second, or third busiest theater in the company. And I remember one of the days during it was the holidays, and one of the days during that period, we did. I don't remember the exact number, but it was right around 19,000 people, and it was fucking insane, like just craziness. And I remember these theaters have these massive lobbies and massive long hallways and wide hallways and stuff. And yeah, again, pre-reserved seating. And we would have a greeter in the front middle of the lobby and then a podium on each side. Okay. And then we would have a crowd control on each side of the lobby and then a crowd control in each hallway as well. And they would all work 10-hour shifts. And all they did was just control these crazy ass lines, and they would just rotate. And so, like, they go from lobby crowd control to podium, over to lobby crowd control to podium to hallway crowd control, and they just rotate around the building clockwise all day. I mean, it was just insane, man. And we would talk to people. It's like, how long have you guys been here? Oh, we've been here for like 5 hours waiting. It's like, oh, how many times have you seen the movie? This is my 7th time. Titanic's like a, I don't know, 3-hour movie or something like that. It's like, how do you have this kind of time to
Yeah.
see a movie that often? But it was a lot of fun. I was just talking to Jeff yesterday on an episode, and we were talking about just how fun that type of insanity was. With just controlling all the lines and all the people and the energy that comes with it. I think the business levels nowadays, like, we can still get busy, but it's a different kind of energy with reserve seating because you don't have those holdout lines. So everybody just comes in, goes to concession, hopefully, and then goes to the movie. And it's just,
Hmm.
you just kind of rotate people in that way. So that's just a different energy, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, operations just continue to change, but that was definitely one of my favorite things was working the lines. I mean, I had a loud enough mouth for it. So even though I'm short
No.
and small, but I'd go into a crowd of people and get them going and get them to do
Hmm.
chants
Yeah.
and those types of customers wanted to be there.
Hmm.
They were happy and you know it was just a different atmosphere. And the midnights, when midnights were a thing, that was when you really had the lines of
Right.
people that would be there for hours. And um, but if something went wrong on those midnight premieres, then you
Oh,
betcha
man.
that, yeah.
And that was something else Jeff and I were talking about, is the prep was different back then. Um,
Mhm.
it just took a lot more upfront prep to make sure you really had control of your building. Nowadays, like, it's still important to prep. Obviously, you want a good show schedule, you need a good employee schedule, you need to make sure you order everything correctly and stuff like that. But the sort of organizational prep of where you're going to put all these people, and making sure that you have the right ushers, like, that's the most, like, nowadays it's not as important to have sharp people as an usher, but back
Mhm.
then it was like, it's very important to have the right people doing crowd control and seating your auditoriums and people on podium, because they needed to be able to control what's going on. And I used to have colleagues that they would just put anybody on podium, especially the people they thought weren't the greatest usher. They would put them on podium, and I was like, I think that's the wrong thing to do. Your podium is your central hub. They're the
Mhm.
ones that are controlling what theater gets cleaned next, who's getting let in, all that kind of stuff. I just felt like that, and they need to be friendly all at the same time.
Mhm.
You ever seen the movie Reality Bites?
No.
Um, there's this funny scene in there with David Spade, and he's working in this little drive-through restaurant or whatever, and it's sort of a parody on working at a restaurant. But he's like, you got to be here, you got to be here, and you got to do this and do this, and he's kind of making fun of it all. But that's how Podium was. Is like, you really do need to be in control of everything. So
Yeah, fun fact about me is I've worked in the movie theater industry for 13 years, but I haven't seen most movies.
it's
So,
such a shame.
yeah, and it's not because I don't like movies. I'm just like always on the go. So to get me to sit down at a theater for 2 hours, I'm more like, okay, there's a light out up there.
Yeah,
There's popcorn on the floor over there. Like, even my husband, he won't go watch movies with me at the theater
yeah,
because I'm just in work mode. Like,
yeah.
I want everybody else around me to have the best experience. So I can't just sit back and relax. But at home, and then I have a kid, so at home we're
Sure,
watching most like Disney
kid
movies.
stuff.
So I've
Yeah,
seen every Disney like animated movie, but I haven't seen like more adult featured films, should I
sure.
say. Yeah.
I can't go see a movie at my theater.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I mean, anymore, the last time I lived even remotely close to one of my theaters has been a hot minute. I mean, I typically live like an hour away. So I usually visit whatever's closest, And then when I was a lot younger, I used to be very critical of other people's operations. And then I finally pulled my head out of my ass and realized we all have our own issues that we have to deal with. And you could walk into anybody's theater and pick it apart if you wanted to, And so it's like, look, they're working on it. They're dealing with their own shit. They certainly don't want me saying something to them about it. So although I've asked friends of mine if they come see a movie at my theater, I'll be like, do you have any feedback? Because they have a different perspective, but not everybody wants that.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes they're afraid to kind of tell you, like they don't let you know, like, hey, the bathrooms were dirty, or
Mm-hmm.
this happened. But at least with friends, they do tell you the positive
Yes.
experiences.
Yeah.
They'll be like quick to say, hey, this stood out to me, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much, that just made my whole day.
Right. God help Lindsay down, where our home office is, because every admin and marketing person or any random person walking into that theater, it's out of toilet paper, it's like, I know, I'm working on it.
I personally was just in that bathroom 20 minutes ago before number 11 let out,
Right.
and I'm sorry, like 300 people just trampled through it, and
Yeah.
we'll get to it.
Yeah, we will get to it. Speaking of, you were talking about rejection earlier, how you've applied at theaters. I remember when I was trying to get my career started, that was, with the company we're with now, that was 97 is when I started applying for theaters. I was a SAM. And I remember getting 3 letters. This is back when they used to send you letters. I got 3 letters on the same day from 3 different RLs rejecting me for 3 different theaters in each letter.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got rejected for 9 theaters on the same day from 3 different people. How crazy is that?
So
So
did they like give reasoning in them, or it was just you're not the
it
candidate we
was just,
picked?
you're not the candidate right now, but please, we encourage you to please apply again. And lots of good talent out there. But, it didn't take very long. There was, we were building so fast back then, and there was just always opportunity. And kind of like what you alluded to a little bit ago was, those theaters weren't the ones for me. I mean, Cleburne, Texas, I didn't want to go to Cleburne, no offense to Cleburne. I'm just saying, I got lucky enough that my very first theater as a GM happened to be the very first theater I worked at with the same company that I started as an employee. And so I got to go back home for a little bit, and I had already moved around a few times as an assistant. So the theater I started at, like, my manager came up to me, my GM came up to me one day while I was threading a projector and asked, do you want to be a manager? And I was like, sure. I mean, I was just trying to finish school or whatever. And so I became a manager. And then a few months later, he got promoted to go to Baton Rouge and open the original theater that we had in Baton Rouge. So he called me up one day. He's like, you want to come down here and help? And that was the moment I made the decision to make it my career, because I had no idea up to that point what I wanted to do. I was just flailing about. And then I went there and then went to El Paso, and then I got to go back home for 6 months to the day is how long I was at that theater.
Wow.
So I was really, really lucky. But I did learn an important lesson as well, is that you got to be really, really careful how you treat people. Because there was a couple of assistant managers that were working there that I worked for as an employee originally, that I came back to be their boss, to be their GM. And there was one of them that was not very nice to me when I was an employee. Now, I tried to be a good person, and I was nice anyway, but there was some coaching that happened. I'm like, this is maybe how you want to treat your employees, because this is what I remembered as an
Yeah.
employee. So it was an interesting experience to be able to go back and do that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my biggest challenge has always been managing people that are older than me.
Mm-hmm.
My theater manager right now, she'll kill me for saying her actual age, but I
Oh,
mean,
I know
she's
who she is.
she's
Yeah.
30 years older than me, but she's my right-hand woman.
Yeah.
Like, the two of us can tag team, and I learn from her and she learns from me, and I've always, given a certain level of respect to everybody. It doesn't matter what age you
Mm-hmm.
are. We all have the same job to get done. And I
And
don't
it's
know
a great
about you,
team.
but yeah, like I like to feel good when I'm done for the day and go home and say, man, we really accomplished a lot today. So, I mean, even with the theater closures right now, I vowed on Monday going into this empty theater that the only thing I can do for my assistant managers at this point is to continue to bust my tail feather to have things ready to go so that when they come back, operations are even better than when they left.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
And I gotta tell you, like, I've been stuck at home. I haven't been able to go back to my building. I've been stuck at home,
Excuse me.
and it kills me because all I wanted to do, like, I mean, as I've been saying to other people, I've spent all of 4 days at that building before all this shit happened. So I don't even know my team. I mean, I met maybe 70% of my managers. I met a handful of my employees, and loyalty, like you were saying, is very important to me as well. So my previous location is extremely loyal to me, and I was still trying to, handle a lot of stuff at that theater while I'm trying to handle stuff at this new theater. And all I want to do is go into this new theater and make a positive impact. And I haven't even been, not only do I not even know my team, but I haven't even been able to do that. And so I've had luckily I still have a theater manager that I can rely on who used to work at your theater actually. And Chelsea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's how I kind of know about your theater manager through her, as well as my best friend, David. So I know, she's definitely assertive and definitely, takes a lot of pride in her job
Mhm.
and the theater and stuff. So, which I think is awesome. I think you're lucky to have someone like that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm lucky to have my theater manager too. She's done she was an interim GM for like the last 7 months and did a fantastic job. So, but yeah, anyway, well, I got off track there. Oh yeah, the rejection stuff. I mean, that's just coming up, in the company and just you just need to get your foot in the door sometimes. Like my wife, she used to work for the company, and I think she applied for 23, 20, somewhere in there, different locations, to be a GM. And it's just so competitive, especially nowadays when we're not building as many as we were back in the 90s. There's so many Sams out there that are just trying to move up. So that's how she ended up in auditing. It's like, well, I'm done trying to apply to be a GM, but I still want to work with this company, but I need to move up somehow. So she thought auditing would be a good shift. It's like, okay, I'll get experience over there, and then I'll slide into a GM role at some point. So
Yeah, I'd say that who you know is very important, and that's even with like customers. That's what I tell my management team. I'm like, you never know who that person is walking in the door.
mm-hmm.
I mean, they could be a lawyer, a doctor, a famous person that you just don't happen to maybe be on that same channel. Like,
Right.
it's really important because opportunities can present themselves to you if you actually present yourself to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even within the company, how many people can you help, or just let them know, like, hey, this is my name, this is what I stand for,
Mm-hmm.
this is where I'm at, let me know what I can do for you. That's really important, is getting your name out there. And even like I'm in school right now, flat, I look back 10 years ago, I'm an assistant in New York going to school, and now here I am in Oklahoma still going to school. But even, with my classes, it shocked me how quiet all the kids are. They don't talk. They
Yeah,
don't
it's
No one
different.
wants to raise their hand. No one wants to go up in front of the class. And I'm like, me, like, get me up in front of the classroom. I didn't, and all, like, people would say, aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid? And I'm like, for what? Like,
Yeah.
if I embarrass myself, then they'll just remember me as the person that did that, but they're at
Right.
least remembering me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think a lot of us get to the position we're in this industry without being like that a little bit. You
Mhm.
have to be confident and assertive and yeah, just put yourself out there. I mean, shit, I could sit here and be insecure all day about doing this podcast. I mean, there are times when I'm laying in bed and I think back on it, I'm like, oh, because it's like I'm just putting myself out there. People are going to listen to me and they're either going to like it or they're not going to like it. I can't fucking stand the sound of my own voice, so I don't go back and listen to these. So and my memory is for shit. So for all I know, I've seen some really, really stupid things, but it's whatever. It's fun to do, and if it can make a positive impact, so be it. But I do agree. I think sometimes it's the people that can get you into the right positions, and not just from a political standpoint, but just making a good impression and showing people that you have the passion and the skill set to be able to do this. But on the flip side of that, I try to do the same for the people that I work with, like my assistants. Like I take a lot of pride and put a lot of effort into the development of the people that work with me, because I needed that, and Robert did that for me. And so I'm trying to do it for as many people as I could possibly do it, even the ones that say, well, I don't want to make this a career. Because how many people do you know in this company that probably said at one point, I have no intention of ever making this my career? I mean, we have vice presidents that work for this company that didn't start out with any intention of, one was a school teacher, for crying out loud. And so I just think it's important to do the same for others and get and get their name out there. Anytime, somebody visits my location, I try to introduce them to as many people as possible to say, and then tell them all the good stuff I can about that person. You know what I mean? So.
Yep. That's what my first GM was really big on that. Anytime an RL would come in the door, hey, this is, meet my Sam, meet my AM, this is what they're doing. And I mean, really at the end of the day, our success is just based off of what the assistant managers do.
For real, yeah.
And I'm learning that this past week.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, this might sound terrible, but I haven't had to compact the compactor in several months. Like, I can make piles of trash, but an usher would take out the trash. Yeah. So I didn't have to do it. And so I'm learning all these things, and I'm like, man, how much did I really rely on my team?
Oh,
and
so much.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you kind of take that for granted as it goes, is like, things are in motion, things are running, everything's well oiled. So you don't really realize, without that one person, just one person, my life is not
miserable.
The same.
Yeah. Dude, I totally relate. And I don't think it sounds bad at all, because look, in our role, especially in a building, like in a bigger building or a complicated building where you have a big team, look, it's tough to be in the trenches all the time doing every single thing. That's why you have a team, but I totally relate. First of all, I have a shit memory, so if I'm not doing something frequently, then I'm not going to remember how for a little while. I mean, if you put me in the situation where I have to do it, I'll figure it out. That's how I got to where I'm at, but like, our senior vice president sent out an email, I think it was yesterday, with projection shutdown stuff. And I don't know, do you know that email I'm talking about?
Yep.
But, look, I have to give him a lot of credit and respect for recognizing the fact that a lot of GMs out there haven't messed with projectors on a regular basis. And he was very understanding about that. And was like, I get it. You've had TTAs that have been handling this. But that's how I am. Like, look, man, I got a TTA. Do you know the last time I had to build a playlist? I mean, I can test on it. I know if someone knows it or not. I can fumble my way through it. But I haven't done inventory in a while. And there's just things that I don't do because I'm the leader. Like, I'm ensuring that everybody is on top of what they're supposed to be doing. I know if it's being done correctly, all that. But like, dude, when we had to do all these shutdown procedures and we had to do a final inventory, I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this, and
yeah, I'm still doing concession shutdown procedures. I mean, I have 3 concession stands, a full-blown Pizza Hut kitchen, a full-blown bar now, and I'm one person, like one person, and I'm like, I in 8 hours is flying by, and then there's a bat in the theater right now. So like that's consuming some of my time, because if it flew by, then it's like, okay, where'd the bat go? And
you should just name him and become friends, and then you guys will hang out together all the time. So.
Well, there's no food source at this point, so hopefully he just settles down somewhere, because he's giving me a little bit of a heart attack. Because then I'm like, oh, there's someone at the door.
Well, I've been doing my best to just stay on top of all the email and communicate with my theater manager on what she's doing. And there's a certain part of me that feels guilty, because she's really having to take on a lot of this stuff that's needing to happen, but she's being productive. I mean, that's a positive thing, and she has something that she can be doing, and she gets to keep her job and all that. So I think that's all very positive.
And then we'll be ready for when the movies are back. And that's what I told my management team. I said, listen, at the end of all this, I said, when we reopen our doors, And
That's
even to
crazy.
my fellow theaters in Tulsa that are with the same company, I will say right now, I'm going to assure that we are the best damn movie theater in the entire state.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
this has just put a vengeance in me. It's made me
Yeah.
angry. Like,
Yeah.
you customers is what we live for, people coming through the doors, and to not see that or have that has made me really angry. Like, I'm gonna fight back at this
Yeah.
one, guys. So
Yeah.
sorry, coronavirus, you didn't win.
Well, it's funny because this whole podcast is called Karen Isn't Always Right, and I have never wanted to be yelled at by a customer so badly as right now, And I joke about it, but at the end of the day, I mean, the only reason we exist is because of customers, That's why we're here. And I just, yeah, it's a little saddening for me, to see the empty, like, I saw my theater made it on a cinema tour yesterday. A guy posted a picture of it, and I saw my empty parking lot. And I was like, Jesus, man. But I was talking to Jeff, and I was talking to my friend Dave earlier, that people have been saying for years now, oh, movie theaters are on the decline and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think when this is over, I think during this whole time, people have really realized how much they actually do like movie theaters and how much they actually really do want to go see movies in a theater and not just sitting on their couch at home. Because as soon as our doors open, I think people are going to flock, you know?
Well, for sure. And a lot of our moviegoers, they're coming to the theater to get away.
Mm-hmm.
They have lots of issues in their personal life. I mean, we don't know where they're coming from. And so I can guarantee right now the amount of depression that has skyrocketed because, yeah, you can watch Netflix and sit home on your couch and do whatever, but
It's not the same.
maybe you're surrounded by people in your household that are not good for your mental health,
Sure.
and getting out and going to the actual theater for that 2 hours was your escape. And sometimes, yeah, they take it out on us at the theater because they're the next person they come in contact with. But I mean, I had one lady that she was so nasty one day, and I just kept thinking to myself, something's got to be wrong. Something's got to be wrong. So I called her on the phone because she ended up writing in and complaining even more because complaining in person wasn't even enough. And I got her on the phone. I said, ma'am, I'm just going to be honest with you. I said, just talk to me. Like, what is going on in your life?
Right.
She said, well, my ex-husband just killed himself 2 days ago. I said, okay, like, you have a right to be angry, and like, I'm let's talk about it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it was all over, but like the butter on her popcorn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just blown away. I just sat there and I'm like, okay, like, you be mad, you can be mad, you
Yeah.
have a right to be mad.
I talk to employees about that all the time when I'm doing our orientation, and I say, look, you need to understand there's a perspective that you don't have, and I think our company and there's another company that have done a good job with, um, there's videos that have been created about this where like it'll show from a guest perspective the moments or even days leading up to their visit and what was going on in their world that contributes to why they're acting the way that they are. And I think just like that situation, it's just you just don't know what anybody might be dealing with. It could be a death, it could be a loss of job, it's whatever. And then not having butter is the catalyst that or the straw that creates this contact us situation or whatever. And that's this whole the win the customer not the argument thing. It can sound a little flippant, to be honest, or because it's like, okay, well, that's easier said than done, but it's so true because it's like, look, it doesn't matter if you as the manager think you're right. It just doesn't. From the customer's perspective, they're right. We've all heard the customer is always right, but we all know, especially as general managers, we all know the customer isn't always right, but it doesn't fucking matter. It just doesn't. It's our job to figure out a way to just make just resolve the issue and make the customer happy. So if the customer has to continue feeling like they're right, then so be it. I've had so many assistant managers that I've had to coach on, like, stop worrying so much about them being wrong. Stop worrying so much about, well, you're compensating them for something that they don't deserve. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, does it really matter to you that you're giving away $10 pass, for something that you feel like you were right about, who gives a shit? So what if Fandango screwed up, or so what if they bought the wrong movie or whatever? It's like, just let them be right, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you nailed it on the head there. I mean, it's just not worth it sometimes,
Yeah.
and at least we work for a company that understands that, and that's why they give us that freedom. So it's like, if they just want to pass and then they say, well, no, I want 2 passes, give them the 2 passes.
I
Like,
know.
why are we going to argue it? Because they're going to just come back and they're going to spend money in the concession stand, and they're going to probably be a lot happier the next visit.
Fuck
So
yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing too. Like, how many times have you seen a complaint come through where that manager had the ability? I mean, we sound like RVPs, where I'm sure they see things come through from, the GMs could have resolved, but like, you see something where the assistant manager clearly had an opportunity to just take care of it, but instead they decided to push back on it. It's like, why did you escalate this? There was no reason that this needed to escalate. Well, I didn't want to give them passes. Well, now I have to. Now I'm gonna, well, that's undermining me. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you had your opportunity to do your job. And I tell people all the time, employees too, because we all have the power, right? I tell people all the time, look, I will never get mad at you if you overcompensate a guest because you were trying to just make them happy and take care of the problem. But I will get mad at you if you had the opportunity and you didn't even try.
mm-hmm.
So, because how would you feel? Like, I talk a lot about empathy to my employees. It's like, you need to put yourself in their shoes, like, just understand where they're coming from, understand why it's not about the issue. Half the time it's not about the issue. It's about the irritation that comes along with it, or whatever else might be going on in their world. Right. So.
Absolutely. It's not worth it. But I think for a lot of assistant managers, it's a pride thing.
Yeah.
They feel like they're losing their title as a manager, which means they have the golden name tag and what they say goes. And then it's just like, it's
Ego.
not how you lead your team. I mean, you're a leader to the staff, I'm a leader to you. We all have a job to get done. So why are we intentionally pissing off people?
I know.
Like, that just sets me back, because now, and I'm the type of person that talks on the phone to the customer for an hour and a half and ends up having lunch with them the next day. Like, I actually have a family from here in Oklahoma City that Craig wrote in, and he said there was an issue with our sound in Auditorium 8. And I remember thinking in my head, like, well, there was over 600 people that day that watched a movie in there, and not one other person said anything about the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Well, lo and behold, half of our speakers weren't working in there.
Oh, shit.
So the other 599 people just
didn't say
anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to him on the phone, and this is 2 years ago. I have now been over his house for Christmas dinner.
Nice.
Him and his wife treat my daughter like family. They're always thinking of her, like, because I got to know them, they got to know me, they know I don't have family here, and now there's, people I consider very important in my personal life. And
Yeah.
but that's how, like, with the theater industry, most people in my life are because of the theater industry.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, your best friends, it's my best friends. They're now married. He was the usher manager, she was the usher, I was the box cashier. They're married, they're still in my life. And even I met my husband because of them, which if I didn't work at the theater, I never would have met. And tons of people along the way, from politicians to even meeting famous people is always really fun too. And
I've lost
so,
track of how many famous people I've met because of working in this job. It's crazy.
yeah, we were supposed to have a big Harry Potter fan event on March 18th at my location with a couple of the actors. Crabbe and Goyle were coming. So I was a little bummed out because it got canceled, but they're supposedly going to reschedule. So
I had one in Boulder for something like that, there with Caravan, and one of the actors, what was that kid's name? Seamus.
Oh.
Yeah. Seamus was at my theater, so we sat around in my office, me, him, and his mom and aunt, just sat around the office bullshitting for a while. That kid smokes like a chimney too, by the way. But it was a lot of fun, you know. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so many people have. I mean, shit, I've met two wives through this company, you know, and uh, at my wedding, my best friend David Nightingale, he was talking about like how many people we've all seen get married as a result of us hiring them. He's like, if anybody's looking to get married, come work for me. We can make it happen, you know. So
It's a good marketing tool when we need to rehire for all this
recruiting.
coming up soon. Like, hey,
No
you can
kidding.
meet your lifelong partner at the theater.
Yeah. You know, I think that's the pattern that I'm seeing as I've been talking to people on these podcasts is really it's the people. You know, that's what it comes down to of why we've stayed in this for so long and why we love this as much as we do. Is it really just does come down to the people. And I mean, look, I've worked at some challenging theaters in my career, and there's been times when I'm like, I just want to be like, fuck this, I'm out. You know, I'm tired of this shit, and then I stick it out, you know, because I love the job. And there's been people that I get insecure sometimes, and I'll think, oh Jesus, you know, these people on my team hate my guts, they don't respect me, whatever, and I get in my head about it. And then come to find out, you know, and I usually find this out when I'm leaving, that they had an immense amount of respect for me and they loved me, you know, and I just didn't know it because how often do people tell their boss, you know, on a regular basis how much, you know, they really respect or care about them, you know. It's important for us to go down with that and tell our people that we
Mhm.
care about them, but it doesn't go up as often as maybe we would like. um, but then, you know, I come to find, you know, like when I left the theater that I just left recently, like I got a bunch of notes and cards and things like that, and it's like, oh my god, now I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
You know. So, and that's what keeps me going sometimes is the impact that I've been able to have on people, positive impact, whether it's becoming friends with them over time or leading them, especially younger ones, you know, like the employee level. I was just talking on the last episode I did about an hour ago, we were talking about, you know, it kind of takes a village, you know, it's teachers, parents, and us, you know. And I see managers, either assistant managers or even other GMs sometimes, you know, they'll bitch and moan about their employees sometimes. They're stupid, or, you know, fucking Gen X, or not Gen X, millennials. You know, they complain about the millennials all the time, or Gen Z, and it's like, stop complaining. Like, this is their first job for a lot of them. Like, your job is to develop them. Your job is to lead them. You know, they don't know any better half the time. You know, so you it's your fault. If they suck, make them
Yeah.
better. Like, if I had to tell managers that, a manager will come in the office and they start going off about some employee, and I'm like, why are you going off about them? Like, it's your job to fix that. They don't know any better. Fix them.
Yeah, you got to work with them and show them the right way, and instead of just turn a blind eye and keep dealing with it till they get fired, it's kind of like, no, let's counsel it now. Let's sit down, let's talk about it, let's see why they're doing this. And I mean, there's usually an underlying issue
Yeah.
as to whether maybe they weren't trained properly.
Yeah.
That's a big one. It's like, you know, this person sucks at closing. Well, no one ever showed them how to properly close. You guys
Mm-hmm.
just gave them a checklist, which that was a big thing at my location, was checklists when I took over. And
I wonder why.
I'm like, we can't live off of these checklists.
Yeah.
Like,
They're a tool.
huh?
They're a tool.
Yeah, they're a tool, but I mean, we need to like personally show them
Yeah.
how to do it first, because it is their first job. I mean, for me, it wasn't my first job. I had the luxury of working for a Halloween store, a seasonal Halloween store, when I turned 16, and I stood on the main road in costumes with a
Oh, nice.
sign.
Nice. Twirling the sign.
And and I'd always pick like the big blow up ones that would have the fan inside, because it was hot as hell out. And I didn't want people to, recognize me, which who the
Sure.
heck was really going to recognize me? But
Yeah.
my parents, they told me, as soon as I turned 16, that you need to get a job. I mean, my dad still works 2, 3 jobs. He's always worked. And So when I got the job at the theater, I didn't have any experience. I knew what I grew up with and what I watched my parents do, but I mean, I needed that guidance, and so luckily I had a general manager and a whole management team that trained and showed and was down in the forefront. I mean, I remember Friday, Saturday nights, my GM cleaning all the windows on the glass in the front foyer of the box office, and then he's running the vacuum, and in between that he's greeting each guest and he's talking to each employee, and it was like he was Superman.
Right.
And I'm like, how do I do that? And over the years, he just kind of taught me that, personal interaction is really important.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, Jeff and I were talking yesterday about our first day, and we had very similar experiences where basically, I mean, this is a long time ago, it was like 89. I think I was 89, he was like 91.
That's
You
when I
just
was born.
so we got we got like thrown in a closet basically and watched these VHS tapes for like an hour or two, and then you go on a register, and that was our training, And then this last theater I worked at, like, I had a great team. I mean, it's still a great team there, and we developed a very, very comprehensive training program. I mean, like, I think I broke down the amount of hours it takes to become a concessionist. A fully trained concessionist at that theater, I think, is like in the neighborhood of 47 hours total. That's with shadowing and tests and all of the different stuff that goes into it. Just there's a lot of moving parts at that theater, and that's like super high quality training, and it shows. Now, I had the luxury of really being able to get a lot of payroll in my budget at that location. Not everybody has that ability, so sometimes it sucks because it's like, well, I have to meet these goals, So this is what we're able to do, But it can show, and I do think it comes down to high quality training. But like I had, before all of this happened, obviously we were feeling that payroll crunch because 20 is supposed to be a down year or whatever. One of the things I was having my management team do is, we have a game plan every day, and they have to, on the game plan, they show how many hours they had to cut or add or whatever. And then on the back of it, they put notes about each department and, what worked as far as scheduling, what wasn't working, what challenges they came across or whatever. So I can use that to help with the next year's budget or whatever. And I remember one night, or one morning I came in and I looked at the previous nights, and the manager was like, well, we needed at least one or two more concessionists because the three I had just weren't trained very well, and it took forever. And my whole thought was like, well, first of all, I'm not going to adjust a budget because of that. Your job as an assistant manager is to train them. If you recognize and identify that these people aren't trained very well, and that's what's slowing things down, then guess what? Train them. Like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, you've obviously identified that these three need some help or whatever. So let's just work on that. That's not a good enough reason to adjust a budget, going forward. So,
Yep. I would agree. You're going to have to share your little budgeting tools with me when this is all said and done.
yeah, I can do that. I mean, I think it's helpful just because any notes that you can have when you sit down to do the yearly budget going forward, it's like, because I mean, again, I have a terrible memory, and so you know how it is when you're trying to adjust your forecast and tweak it and stuff like that. It's like, well, I mean, I think this was working. I can't remember, but if I have 365 days to go back and look at and relate it to, okay, this is what the attendance is supposed to be, this is what it actually was, and my whole team was freaking the fuck out about their payroll budget for the day, clearly I need to adjust that, So I find it, I mean, I think it'll be helpful. I just started doing it before this, meltdown that we're having right now. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree. Like, I listened to the one podcast with Claney, and I do feel like the work ethic is not what it used to be. So even if we do invest in more training, there's still just the
apathy,
lack of urgency. That's what it's like. Lack of urgency. Like, some of these kids move dang slow, and I've already spun 4 circles around them, and like, but I'm also from New York, so everything is fast paced there. Like, if you're slowing down, you're losing. So in Oklahoma is very slow, except when they're driving, they drive like maniacs. But like in terms of service, it's like slow, and I'm more like, okay,
Isn't
no.
that ironic though? because we're talking about a generation. Not, I hate lumping everybody into generations, but for ease, we're talking about a generation that expects things immediately, yet their work ethic doesn't support that immediacy. You know what I mean? It's weird. So.
Yeah. Yep. No. And there's this, my old social studies teacher who I nannied for. She gives this example to her high schoolers still, and I'll never forget this. I was an assistant manager up in New York, and one of my employees came in late, 5 minutes late, but they had Dunkin' Donuts coffee in their hand. And I sent them home. I was like, I'm like, you're late because you decided that you were going to stop and get a coffee when you didn't have enough time to get coffee. You've been late, X amount of times. Go home. And she's like, you're
Didn't get
kidding,
it.
right?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I could hire someone that's going to be here on time and appreciate the job and not just think going to get a coffee and being 5 minutes late is okay.
Right.
And so yeah, my old social studies teacher, she tells all her seniors that, like, you have to be prompt, you have to appreciate the job and do what they ask of you, otherwise you're not going to have a job.
It's interesting how many people have such a fluid sense of time, lately. I definitely am feeling my age a little bit, because I really feel like I'm that guy who's like, these kids today, but it does. Oh, you got donuts. My wife got donuts.
Is it from Dunkin'?
I don't know. We got delivery. But yeah, so much. I'm like, these kids today can't be on time, or they just don't work with a sense of urgency. Like, I used to tell ushers, like, if I don't see you sweating by the end of this round, you're not working hard enough. And I just came from a 9-screen theater where it's only 800 seats, and they'll complain if there's only 5 of them. And it's like, man, I've worked at like a 24-screen theater where I only had 3 cleaning ushers. So I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, I'm not just doing this because the donuts showed up, but we actually did just come up on an hour. So.
Okay. Well, that was fun. I'm glad we got to talk. And I mean, this is a weird time right now I went to bed at 9 o'clock last night on a Friday night. It was the weirdest thing ever. So
yeah.
I think it's great that we have our fellow GMs to, lean on, and we're going to get through this, and pretty soon the doors will be open. And
yeah, I'm glad everybody's staying in touch. I don't know that I've ever talked to as many GMs on a regular basis as I have been in the last week and a half or so. And I think it's pretty great. I think, if we can find any silver linings in all of this, I think it's definitely been bonding for all of us. And I certainly hope our company has a convention next year if they can make it work, because that'll be probably the most emotional and bonding convention ever in the history of our company. So
yeah, I've been listening to the late Kenny Chesney's The Gambler on my way to work to like get me going, and I'm like, I'm not ready to fold him till I'm in Vegas with all my GM friends again. So until then, I'm fighting this hand, baby.
Well, it'll be before you know it, we'll have Long Islands. So
all right, thank you, Chris.
Yeah,
you take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
That's the podcast, folks. Please visit kiarpodcast.com. That's KIAR podcast.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. New episodes are going to be posted weekly on kiarpodcast.com, Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. The views and opinions on this podcast are solely that of the guests and hosts and are not representative of any other organizations or individuals. If you or someone you know are interested in being a guest on Karen Isn't Always Right, please give us a visit at kiarpodcast.com and submit your interest on the Contact Us page, as we'd love to have you. Thanks for joining us on Karen Isn't Always Right, and we'll see you next time.